This is 10,000 Hours of Indie, and more specifically the 80 Bands Around the World project. I've set myself the task of seeing 80 independent bands from around the world. There's no time limit, but I can only see one band or artist from each country, and I can't put money into the pocket of Ticketmaster. Simple, right? Well, I'm also based in Finland, which makes it tougher, so I'll need help from any touring bands that come through or event organisers that can help get me to my total of 80. Give me a follow on socials and get in touch if you can help. Links are in the show description. So I'm back on the 80 Bands Around the World project, and for this one I jumped on a metro over the local border to Espoo to take in the sights and sounds of the 40th April Jazz Festival. This is a festival I've been meaning to visit for several years, but somehow had never made it yet, so I had some catching up to do. Obviously my main aim was to fulfil the criteria of adding some bands towards the 80 bands total. So let's delve into what I managed. So, as with the Tallinn Music Trip, I didn't actually interview in the order I saw the artists, but as there were only 2 interviews, I'm just going to do them in the order I saw them and have done with it. So, first up, Quite Vivian. They were playing in a small bar called Kupla, pretty much what I would call a traditional jazz cafe setup, and they were playing at the end of the first day of the festival. I arrived early, thankfully, as the venue was a little difficult to find, tucked around the back of what appeared to be an old, disused office space, one of many in the area. Welcome to Espoo, currently under pretty heavy renovation, it seems. The space was comfortable, and the seated capacity was filled soon after the show began, so it had a great atmosphere. Quite Vivian are a trio of guitar, saxophone and drums. They performed a set of original material taken from their debut album released at the start of the year, Fragile People. This was a really good set. The audience were warm and receptive to their sound, and despite having a substitute drummer, they sounded musically tight and seemed to enjoy their performance. I spoke to guitarist Wilfried a week after their show about the trio and their show. Can you introduce yourself and the band and what genre you are in under a minute?
So I'm Wilfried Wild, jazz guitarist and composer from France. Our band is Quite Vivian, which is an international band, a bassless trio with Adele Sauros on tenor saxophone and vocals, and Rajiv Jayawira on drums. Adele is from Finland, and Rajiv is from Australia. We played contemporary jazz, original compositions.
So what are the influences for the band? What was your sort of starting point when you first got together to make music?
The band started basically as just the 3 of us practicing together because we were selected in the same project in Switzerland in a bigger band, and we spent 1 year with this project. And the 3 of us within the band, we kind of connected more, and we were just practicing together. And at some point we decided to record something, because with Adele also we were composing together, and the 2 songs on our album are co-composed. But the other one, kind of, because we were practicing so much together that it influenced us anyway. It started like this, basically practicing together, and then at some point deciding to record what we were doing.
So what do you listen to outside of the band? Are you mainly a jazz guy, or do you like a bit of rock and roll and things like that? Or what's your listening taste?
The last years, I definitely became a jazz guy. And really, I love guitarists. I had a huge influence from Kurt Rosenwinkel, I guess like many guitarists from our generation. And Gilad Excelman, that was playing here in Helsinki yesterday also. It was really nice. But also I really like traditional, jazz from the 40s, 50s, 60s, bebop, hard bop, and what came after that. It's a huge influence. So, all the legendary musicians, I also, listen them and really enjoy this music. But yeah, in my past, I had also, I didn't start music or listening music with jazz. And I was really into punk rock when I was younger and metal. And, I started to play guitar playing this. And at some point, I went through the jazz path and kind of never came back. Even if I have a band in Spain, which is like alternative rock, but I would not say that it's my main activity.
So you played in Tupla, which was one of the smaller venues for the festival. You had a really good audience. How did you find the show?
It was indeed really nice. I loved the place. For us, maybe it was a bit intimidating because we knew that the audience was actually mainly, people from the industry that has spent the whole day listening to other bands, and we are just there, like at the end of the day, playing for them. So a bit different than maybe a typical concert, like knowing that. But we definitely enjoyed. Also, as you know, our drummer couldn't make it, so it was a bit more challenging for us to play with another one. It went really well, and we were really happy with the result.
How much stress does that cause a band when sort of at the last minute you lose a member and you've got to get a replacement in and try and squeeze in as much practice as possible just before the show?
It causes stress, of course, but we knew that we could count on Jonas, so there was no issue with that. And we rehearsed before the gig. It's not that we couldn't prepare the music at all, so we knew that it will work.
The sound in there was fantastic. I have to say, of all the festivals I've been to, I would say this had near perfect sound for every show I went to.
That's great. We were definitely happy with the sound guy who was apparently in charge of the rest of the gig, so good job there.
So if you could recommend one track from the band to a new listener, which one should they start with?
That's a difficult question, as one track will not represent everything that we do. But I guess probably Missing Bar would be a nice one, because it's co-composed by Adele and myself. And I would say the drum part is very special. So, in a way, in that track, the drummer Rajiv also has a big part in the arrangement of the track. So it reflects maybe the combination of our three voices the best.
I probably can't ask this as a band because you haven't played that many shows so far, but what is the most rock and roll thing you've ever done as a musician?
Playing with my rock band was the most rock and roll, or I would say also a collaboration I did with a French jazz saxophonist. His name is Charles Rose. He composed something inspired by Meshuggah. I don't know if you know this band.
Yeah, the metal band, yeah.
So he basically used the compositional technique of this band, but applied to a jazz quartet with saxophone, but sounding, really metal, and the drums, really, really in the style. So yeah, maybe that was the most, heavy thing I played.
So can you recommend another band from your native country that listeners should check out?
I'm not really aware of the bands right now in the French music scene, but a musician that I could recommend that lives there at least for many years is Nelson Veras. I really liked him. I don't know what kind of project he has now, so I can't really mention a band. But it's my bad. I should keep myself informed of what's happening in my country.
For people to understand why you answered like that, you've been living in Spain and you spent some time in Switzerland before you moved here to Finland. So just so people have a background, they should know that.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally, what is the best way for people to find out about the music of Quite Vivian? Because you don't actually have a website or an Instagram or anything.
Yes, exactly. So the best way is to go to our Bandcamp page. There you can just listen to music, and you can buy the album. And as we know, that's probably the best way for us to sell our music. But also, of course, we are on all the streaming platforms. And regarding Instagram, we don't have an Instagram for the band, but each of us is always posting every time we have something related to the band. So any of our accounts will inform about what's happening with this band.
Next up was Dafa Youssef. I will only touch briefly on this show as it was a fantastic live experience, but sadly Dafa comes from Tunisia and it's a country I already covered during Tallinn Music Week. The show was in Tapiola Hall, a space made for live music and events, and the sound was amazing, except I felt the bass was a little muffled, maybe just me though. This was a blend of traditional Sufi music, Arabic tonalities, jazz, chamber music and some electronic soundscapes too. 5 amazing musicians playing beautifully and captivating the audience with, at times, otherworldly sounds. Dafa has an incredible voice alongside playing the oud, and he is also an accomplished frontman. He didn't chat to the audience too much during the show, but he did encourage the audience to make some noise and dance if they want, something Finns struggle to do, especially in a concert hall space. It was at some stage during this show that I realised I have an issue with drummers wearing hats on stage. I have no idea where this came from, but both the drummer for this band and Quite Vivian were wearing baseball caps, and it seems to be my latest niggle. Tao Ehrlich was the drummer in this band, and I have to say he was one of the best live drummers I've ever seen. Maybe I'll only remember the hat in a few years' time though. So the final show I saw was Tigran Hamasyan. He played on Friday night in a Helsinki venue called Korjaamo. I had already spoken to Tigran before his show, so I had an idea what I was in for here. The venue is all standing and nearly always has great sound and it's a good size. However, the show began a little over 30 minutes late, which was quite frustrating, and having taken a spot not too far from the stage, I had to move back as I was struggling with the weight of the crowd, ending up right at the back for comfort's sake. However, it didn't affect the sound or the show. The show began, a 4-piece consisting of piano, keyboard, bass guitar, drums, and vocals. I think 3 vocals. This is very loosely jazz. I got more of a feeling of heavy prog, certainly with some metal influences and touches of classical piano, all blended with some Armenian folk roots. It was a great combination. What a band they are as well, playing mostly material from Tigran's latest album, Manifest. This is properly intense as a musical experience, which really sucks the audience in. Again, what a show it was. I spoke to Tigran earlier in the day he performed. Can you introduce yourself and your music in under a minute?
My name is Tigran Hamasyan. I play piano and I'm also a composer. I play music that's in between, depending on the project, it's in between jazz, progressive metal, Armenian folk music, and punk rock.
What are your influences as a pianist?
Well, I grew up on one side, with a lot of classic rock. My father was a big rock fan, so I grew up with Black Sabbath and Nazareth and all these rock bands. On the other hand, I grew up with Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea and Miles Davis, which was my uncle's influence. Both worlds kind of influenced me to become who I am, I guess. But at the same time, I would have to, I guess, also for sure credit classical music, because it's I went to a classical music school when I was 6, had my first lessons when I was 5, and to this day, it's a huge influence on me. A lot of 20th century classical music and Baroque and early European music.
What do you listen to the most?
I listen to, very specific jazz, like Coltrane between 62 and 4.
Okay, yeah.
And for example, and a lot of, like, let's say Miles Davis quintet with Herbie.
Yeah.
Very early Chick Corea. I love Brad Meldau. But I also listen to a lot of, early medieval music, early European music, like Masho, Belotan, very early Polyphony when it was just getting, the polyphony was like the first polyphonic mass, for example, by Marshall is just a huge influence. But also folk music from around the world, specific metal bands. I just went back to, I think it's the UK artist, electronic artist. That's been 5 years maybe since he released anything. His name is Sami Yam. Just short, he's a producer, music producer, incredible on the hip hop side, but it's beautifully done. So I just went back into his catalog, which was incredible.
It's nice to delve back into stuff sometimes, to rediscover music, yeah.
So I like also certain type of electronic music. But a lot of UK artists, honestly, from the electronica scene. Also, Hudson Mohawk, Chris Clark, very niche stuff, but...
You're in Espoo at the moment, you're playing in Helsinki tonight. You've played in Finland before. Did you play at Pori Jazz?
Last one, I think, was Pori Jazz.
Yeah. How was that experience?
It's great. Yeah, it's always great. Yeah.
And what are you expecting tonight?
We played Pori a couple of times, which is outside, which is a nice vibe, but, it can be more intimate this time around. We're playing music from my latest album, Manifest, that was just released a few months ago. And, it's a quartet with, I have a pianist who's mainly doing a lot of synths and keyboards, programming, and there's an electric bass player and a drummer. Jessai Karapetana is on the keys, his brother Mark Karapetana on the bass, and Arman Natsakanyan on the drums. And I'm playing piano, some synths, and singing.
So it's quite an electronic set tonight then?
Yeah, it's pretty much on the heavy side. There will be some quiet moments, but yeah, it's pretty on the heavy side.
If you could recommend one track that you've made to a new listener to start their listening journey of yours, what would it be?
Probably Court Jester. It kind of encompasses a lot of different things in one composition.
What is the most rock and roll thing you've ever done?
It was the last concert I did in London. I cut my finger. I got on stage, played a little bit of the sound check, went back to open, I don't know what I was opening, and just totally freaking cut almost like the top of my finger off. And just, went, got the super glue, like all kinds of stuff. And it was, of course, nothing helped. And it was ultra painful. So I managed to play the gig, but the whole piano was just blood. And it was just, I can show you a photo, but that was the most rock and roll. It was like a bloody good show, literally. But anyways, it's pretty graphic. So it's definitely, that was definitely some metal.
Okay. Can you recommend another band from your native country that we should check out?
A band, yeah. It's a band of an Armenian woodwind player. His name is Noray Kartashan, and the name of the band is Menwa Band. It's a really beautiful band. I went to their concert recently. It just sounds so beautiful. It's like Armenian folk songs, but arranged in a super cool way. There's a lot of there's a harmony. The woodwinds, like traditional woodwinds, are playing harmonies. There's a cello player. There's like a percussion player who plays the traditional stuff, but also has got this hybrid kit. They have some electronic. It's pretty cool.
And finally, what is the best way for people to find out more about you and your music?
I would say, my website, but probably Instagram also.
So let's do a count of where I'm up to with the 80 Bands project. I saw 3 artists at April Jazz, but only 2 counted towards my total. Those were artist number 17, Tigran Hamasyan from Armenia, and band number 18, Quite Vivian, with guitarist Wilfried coming from France. So I've covered 2 more, I'm up to 18. Next up will be Helsinki's World Village Fair, where I'm hoping to catch another batch of international bands to continue the journey.